It was in a rare Thanksgiving video address that US President Donald J. Trump delivered a blunt warning. The United States would soon expand its campaign against alleged Venezuelan drug trafficking networks from sea to land. According to Trump, attacks by US forces have already almost stopped maritime trafficking. Now, the land is easier, and operations on Venezuelan soil will begin very soon. The announcement marks a major escalation in a months-long campaign, as Washington shifts from targeting suspected drug smuggling vessels in international waters to threatening land-based operations inside or near sovereign Venezuelan territory. Since August 2025, the Trump administration has systematically deployed naval and military assets to Caribbean waters and other strategic locations in Latin America as part of a broad counter-narcotics campaign. The campaign, codenamed Operation Southern Spear, was officially unveiled on November 13, 2025. Since early September, US forces have struck more than 20 vessels purportedly involved in drug trafficking, mostly in the Caribbean Sea and the Eastern Pacific. These strikes reportedly resulted in at least 83 fatalities. The military buildup includes deployment of surface warships, aircraft, and thousands of troops, the largest US concentration of warships in the region in decades. According to US officials, these operations have allegedly reduced maritime drug trafficking by as much as 85%. Yet this surge in force has drawn sharp criticism from regional leaders, human rights advocates, and legal experts. Many have condemned the strikes as extrajudicial, carried out without public evidence, oversight, or due process. At the heart of this intensifying confrontation is Nicolás Maduro, Venezuela's embattled leader, and the shadowy network often referred to as Cartel de los Soles, Cartel of the Suns. In November 2025, the US formally designated the cartel as a foreign terrorist organization, explicitly tying it, and by extension Maduro, to narcotrafficking and alleged terror financing. US officials argue that Maduro's government has allowed, if not facilitated, vast cocaine and drug trafficking operations that funnel dangerous opioids and narcotics toward the United States. From Washington's perspective, the current campaign, both military and diplomatic, serves dual aims: staunch the flow of illicit drugs into the United States and isolate or weaken the Maduro regime, which the US refuses to recognize as legitimate. Many analysts believe US pressure is intended to hasten regime change in Caracas. In his address to US military personnel, Trump said, "You probably noticed that people aren't wanting to be delivering by sea anymore, and we'll be starting to stop them by land also. The land is easier, but that's going to start very soon." He framed the land campaign as a logical next step. Maritime routes had been largely disrupted, so traffickers would switch to land. He added, "We warned them, stop sending poison to our country." And again, "We're already doing a lot. We've almost stopped it. It's about 85% stopped by sea." Through that blunt language, Trump portrayed the US operations as a moral and security imperative, aimed at preventing narcotics entering the US, which he suggested are responsible for great social harm. At the same time, multiple organs of the Biden-era foreign policy establishment now fall under Trump's leadership, including his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who publicly introduced Operation Southern Spear. Unsurprisingly, Caracas was swift to reject Washington's narrative, calling the US actions a pretext for regime change. Venezuela's leadership has accused the United States of using narco-terrorism allegations to justify intervention and undermine sovereignty. Venezuelan officials argue that the cartel being targeted, Cartel de los Suns, lacks a formal structure and warn that attempts to decapitate or pressure the regime may plunge the country further into chaos. Meanwhile, in public remarks, Maduro has tried to mobilize nationalist sentiment. He has demanded vigilance, redirected media attention to US aggression, and called for popular resistance to any foreign intervention. The shift from naval strikes to potential land operations raises profound legal and ethical questions. Some of the key concerns include whether the strikes, many outside declared war zones, constitute extrajudicial killings under international law. Critics highlight that US authorities have provided no evidence that the targeted vessels were definitively linked to drug trafficking. Whether ground operations inside or near Venezuela would amount to an act of war or an illegal intervention, potentially violating Venezuelan sovereignty. The ambiguity around the existence and structure of Cartel de los Soles. Some experts argue the group is a loosely defined label rather than a structured organization, raising doubts about whether terrorist organization designation meets conventional definitions. These concerns have drawn warnings from human rights advocates, Latin American governments, and parts of the international community. The fear is that a militarized anti-drug campaign could quickly morph into a broader regional conflict or regime change operation. As it stands today, November 28, 2025, it remains unclear exactly when or how land operations will begin. The US has not released a detailed plan, nor identified specific objectives or targets within Venezuela. Sources familiar with US planning say covert operations may precede any overt ground incursion, as Washington tries to minimize public backlash. Observers warn that such operations could trigger a dangerous escalation, mobilizing Venezuelan militias, prompting regional backlash and leading to unpredictable humanitarian consequences. Given the fluid situation, some analysts caution that what begins as a war on drugs could rapidly evolve into a broader geopolitical confrontation. On the other hand, some US policymakers still publicly leave open the possibility of talks. In the weeks prior, Trump suggested that dialogue with Maduro's representatives might be considered, though only if Caracas shows willingness. This ambiguity, simultaneously threatening force while leaving a door for diplomacy, has deepened uncertainty about US intentions. While the immediate rationale offered by Washington is counter-narcotics, many experts view the escalation as part of a broader strategic push against the Maduro government. According to that interpretation, the war on drugs serves as a cover for increased pressure on Caracas, including sanctions, financial isolation, and the spectre of military intervention. For the United States, the stakes include not only stopping drug flows, but also reducing influence of Venezuela in the region, undermining a regime accused of autocracy, and sending a message to other states that Washington may act militarily when threatened by illicit networks. For Venezuela, the confrontation threatens sovereignty, domestic stability, and could provoke retaliation, potentially dragging in regional actors and reshaping alliances in Latin America. For the wider world, the coming days and weeks may test the boundaries of international norms, whether extrajudicial strikes and preemptive land operations against alleged criminal networks can be reconciled with global law and human rights. As of now, the record is clear. The United States, under President Donald J. Trump's leadership, has escalated its anti-drug campaign into a sweeping maritime strike operation and is now threatening to expand it onto land. Whether this campaign remains focused strictly on narcotics interdiction or evolves into a broader effort to destabilize or dismantle the Venezuelan state under President Nicolas Maduro remains uncertain. What is certain is that the stakes are high. Human lives, state sovereignty, and international law stand on the line. And with US military assets already amassed in the region, the world may soon witness a turning point in Washington's decades-long war on drugs.